going to conferences all the time is the main driver for progress in your skill set and also your relationship, and basically any professional can become a better professional by attending conferences.
It's not the standard, okay? It's a movie theater, but the visual is great and the sound is great, and I've seen a lot of room and space, and I think it's organized well.
Seeing all the people here today and they're excited about stuff, and you can see the energy and the desire to learn and do new things.
And I was positively surprised about the depth, the technical depth of the sessions, and how that makes the tester part of the team.
I think developers do benefit from coming to QA conferences, just the same as testers can benefit from going to dev conferences. You know, you've got to have a broad understanding of what's going on.
It's really inclusive. I would say like it's super diverse, people are really open and friendly, and it's really organized.
Conferences are well worthwhile just for the ideas that they spark in people. When people come back to the office, they're full of ideas and they're all energized up.
Hey all, my name is Dmitriy Kovalenko. I'm from Ukraine and I'm a software developer. And I have a lot of chances to work together a lot with QA automation engineers in my career. It was a pure pleasure for sure. But today I'm going to talk about some problems personally I am seeing in QA automation community. How to fix them and become the most efficient in this profession. And also some of my utopian thoughts about how to make our work together really
Nice.
Hey everybody! Nice to meet you here on the QA automation through the eyes of a developer talk on TestCon. I'm really happy to be here right now. And yeah, let me first of all introduce myself. So it's me. My name is Dmitriy Kovalenko. You can call me Dima if you want. And yeah, I'm a developer. I'm working at Cypress.io. And don't worry, this talk would not be about Cypress. But if you want to ask something or discuss something, you anyway can join Ask Me Anything corner after the talk. We will talk about Cypress. But today, I hope we will talk about something more important than some technology or something else. I think we will talk about the professional growth of QA automation from the eyes of software developer. Yeah, I will try to describe some problems I can see in QA community, and not really problems, but also a nice thing you guys are doing. Okay, and first of all, yeah, we are going to discuss the problems we can solve together by working together as one team, and do not separate our work, and in order to build the most qualified and the best applications we can. But first of all, I want to a little bit introduce myself and like what gives me power to talk about the problems in QA community, as far as I'm not actually QA engineer, but developer. And I will tell you a story. I drew it myself, not really well, but yeah, it's me. I don't know where is the image, but somewhere. Okay, so the story. Before joining Cypress.io, by the way, I'm working here for the second time, but before joining the first time Cypress, I've been working in the outsourced company. And it was a pretty regular company. We've been working on a lot of projects. We had a lot of teams, but one day I met QA automation engineers. Yeah, we started working together, and I would not say that I was pretty surprised, but it was something interesting. We started working together, and yeah, the problem is that I had completely no idea what QA automation engineers are doing. Yeah, because QA, I had no access to the code they're writing, to the tests they are running, only see some kind of stats on Jenkins, some kind of results, test failures, and that's it. And I would say that I was pretty in the state where the 90% of developers right now in the world, they completely have no idea about what QA automation engineers are doing, except maybe like the overall understanding of the process running end-to-end tests. But everything changed one time when I started thinking about the test confidence of the tests I'm writing, because I didn't have access to the real end-to-end test. I started thinking about tests that I'm writing. I decided that my tests are actually useless, started writing some kind of tests with Cypress, and one day I left the company and joined Cypress.io. And I felt completely in love with the tests can be written with Cypress. Yeah. And once I joined Cypress, I started speaking on the conferences. And one of it's actually the most favorite conference, and the conference I loved the most was TestCon in the past year, when I've been talking about Cypress, and I met a lot of wonderful QA engineers I just met the QA community. I joined it, I can say. I started speaking with a lot of QAs. I'm right now sitting in a lot of QA chats, and after all, I started to clearly see the problems that appeared, the problems that we have in the work with QAs when I had no idea what they are working. Yeah, and today I'm going to share some thoughts about the optimizing the workflow process for both of us. But what the problems we actually have? And it's not really problems for some person, some people, right? It's not a problems for developers or QAs. It's, I think, more important problems. It's the problems that hurts our applications. Yeah, these problems are actually increase the time to develop, push, and release the features. Actually, increase the time to market, and makes our application a little bit more brittle to the regressions and to the bugs. And I know that no of us wants to have some problems for our application. So today I will try to describe something that, in my humble opinion, can improve our workflow. And the first problem I would like to discuss today is separation of work from developers. Yeah. For some reason, and actually I know the reason, and I will talk about this in the end of the presentations, the reason of trying to separate QA automation work from the application development itself. And yeah, it can be described in several hours. We can discuss this a lot, but I would like to ask you just two questions. And the first one would be where we should store an automation, near the application or in separate repository. Sorry. Unfortunately, we don't have any chat here, so please raise your hand alone in your room. But yeah, actually, the question is pretty obvious, right? Where near the application, right? But for some reason, as far I'm seeing, a lot of teams, a lot of QA and developer teams continue deciding to store automation code separately. But what the benefits we can get from this? Let's quickly discuss what we can get by storing the code near the automation code, near the application code. And the first, we can get the same CI pipeline, right? We can get the same infrastructure. We can have the same practices for running our tests, again, our application. And what is more important, we can even run our end-to-end reliable and confident end-to-end tests on each commit that developers doing into the application code. And this is completely wonderful because you can get the most earliest feedback that possible, because you are just like pushing your code and your tests are saying that you did not break something. I can say that it's maybe the worst feeling in the world when you clearly understand that you broke something in production or even like on stage. Yeah, it's the most awful feeling, and everybody wants to avoid this. And that's why I can say with 100% sure that developers want to have qualified tests. And that's like true. Developers want to be sure that application really works right now, right there. And that's why running your test as early as possible completely important. And also when we are running our tests as early as possible, we can get another useful point. Developers can fix tests. Yeah. So imagine the situation. There is a small bug or a small feature that needs like to change one little text phrases in one place. Yeah. Developers come in, fixing test, pushing this to the master, everything works. And then after some delay, it may be like hours, it may be days, it may be weeks, who knows. We had like one time we have like not running regression at all in the sprint until the end. Yeah, and after some delay, tests are running, and everybody understands that some tests are failing, and there are pretty a lot of tests failing, right? And you need much more time to understand and to analyze why this particular test was failed. Get back to the tickets, take them, update the test, push them, rerun. Why? If we can do this right on the step of the pull request, because pull request will just not allow to merge until the tests are passing. Yeah, and this is completely wonderful pipeline because you are ready that you are not breaking anything. Okay, but what we're getting if we are storing our code in separate repository? I don't know. There are nothing. I cannot see any benefits in storing our code in separate repository over near the application. Yeah. If you have some, we can discuss it after the talk. But if we're talking about this particular approach, storing in separate repository, for some reason, teams continue storing them separately. Why? I had only one reason, yeah? Because the QA automation code is written in different language from application. And yeah, nobody wants to have a hell of different languages like in one repository. Yeah, it's pretty annoying. But yeah, this question is much harder than the previous one. But what do you think? Which language we should use? The same as application written, or which QA knows? And logically, if we are going from the first answer, we will get to the same as application because developer can fix tests, they can understand what tests are doing, they can improve test speed. Everything is much easier when everything is written in one language. But I don't have the right answer for you because the situations are different. So maybe we will ask Google. Java? Really? That's weird. Yeah. Unfortunately, there are like a lot of QA teams deciding to choose completely different language for the applications. And I don't know what the problem here is initially. Maybe it's some kind of management problem or something else. But as a result, we can get to something like this. When different parts of our software is written in different language, and like you can like read and understand 1-2 language, but when there are 3-4 languages, it's becoming it's becoming harder and harder to mentally have like the structure of the project in your head to understand, and which is more important, to have the same rules and same best practices for this particular repository and project. And this leads to the problems in the long terms. Yeah, because it's becoming harder to find people, it's becoming harder to teach people, it's becoming harder to ask a question for the team members. Yeah, but still I cannot like force anybody, but would be much better if the yeah, I think you will agree that it will be much better if the code will be written in the same language and it will be near the application, it will be running in the same CI pipeline. But maybe now somebody is thinking something like, okay, this guy is saying that tests should be written in the same language. It should be running on the same CI. It should be like developers can have an access and fixing tests. Maybe developers will write tests as well, and we don't need it. Uh, no, guys, I will never say this because you guys are awesome. I really love QAs because there is one reason that one thing developer never be able to do: write qualified tests. Yeah, because it's really impossible. Maybe I think it's impossible to write not subjective tests as developer, because when you're like developing and designing feature logical in your mind, you have some kind of structure, right? And when you're running tests, this structure is like making you subjective, and you cannot cover everything. Yeah, but QA automation engineers, which have like an awesome knowledge of test design. By the way, developers mostly never have idea what test design is. They can write a really confident and really reliable test, and this is completely important. And which is more important, that QA automation is hard. Yeah, it's hard because like in order to write efficient, fast, maintainable tests, you need a lot of knowledge. And that's actually why Cypress.io exists, because it's just trying to make it a little bit easier for just trying to make it a little bit easier and like screw up the learning curve into the QA automation profession. But QA automation is still a part of software development. Like, it's not a separate branch of software development. So please do not try to isolate yourself and your work from the application. Try to work together with application, with development team, and do not war with each other and fight with the problems, right? And this will lead to the best applications in the world. But also, this point is leading to the next question. The next problem I constantly see in the QA community. This problem is programming skills. And yeah, I see that could be weird. Why QA engineers should have programming skills? But I think it's really important. And it appears to be a real problem, definitely in my humble opinion. As I already said, I started like communicating a lot with QA. I started listening QA podcasts. I started sitting in the chats, QA groups, chats, and like chatting with QA a lot. And I see things something like this. Somebody is like giving a code snippet and say, hey, why this doesn't work, guys? I'm searching for 2 hours and I don't understand this. Somebody else answering, oh, you forget, oh, wait. And somebody else, oh, really? Or something else. And I can say that there are a lot more dumb questions in the QA community related to the language and related to the environment they're writing tests for. Like, how can I map an array? How can I like store it in the variable? I don't know. And this, I think, coming because, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, this appears because QA's community are switching languages too often. Yeah, like because somebody wants to write tests for JavaScript applications, they take in JavaScript, and for some reason, not everybody, but somebody do not pay a lot of attention to get knowledge about the platform and the language you're writing tests for. And I think it's a problem because, for example, if I would hire somebody for writing tests for WebDriver.io tests, which is actually not just tasks that are running, and it's not just process using the same environment, platform, and language, I would expect pretty the same as from not just backend developer who is running the same code, not really the same, but a little bit different, but still code on the Node.js platform. And they both need to clearly and professionally understand how it works, what is event loop and everything. Yes, and I think that this is highly underrated by the QA community. One of the most important, like one of the best, or not really the best examples of this maybe underrating of language-based investigation is page objects pattern and Cypress, because each conference or each meetup, each like workshop, somebody is asking me question, how can I build page objects in Cypress? And all the time I'm answering pretty the same. Please do not try to build page object with Cypress. And this is kind of a problem, yeah, because page objects is a nice pattern that was created, I think, by the Java community. And here's the problem. Because this pattern was created by the Java community, the implementation, trying to just get the same code and try to inject this in JavaScript appears to be a problem, yeah? Because we don't have classes in JavaScript. Yeah, this will be like probably the one technical slide in the on this talk, but yeah, we don't have classes in JavaScript. And I constantly see a lot of developers and teams are trying to get more and more and more get the classes to the JavaScript in order to make an abstraction. But I can say that this is not needed. There are different ways to build an abstraction, especially in JavaScript. Maybe this will work with Python. Maybe this will work with Dart. Maybe this will work with Java and C#. But for JavaScript, we have completely different approaches and best practices for abstractions. It's more functional ways. For example, Facebook says on their React documentation that classes are confusing people and machines because there are no classes in JavaScript. So probably if you are coming from one language to another one, one really important thing right here is that you need to understand the philosophy of this language. You need to understand how it works, the best practices for this, and try to build something related to this particular language, which is completely important in terms if we are talking about the unique code-based system that works unified for developers and QAs for one particular project. Yeah. And another step would be do you really know what's running your tests? You're running tests for Node.js, you're running tests on Java, it doesn't matter. You are running tests somehow. Do you really know the platform you're running tests? Do you run tests in Docker? Do you understand what is Docker, how it works? Do you understand Kubernetes if you're using it? If no, that's a nice point to improve yourself and become professional, more professional than you are right now. Because in order to become a professional, you need to get deeper and deeper and deeper to the code you are writing. Yeah, it's pretty the same requirements as for developers. In order to become professional, you need to understand the whole pipeline of the software development and the code you are doing, right? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, let me check in. I think I'm missing. Okay, yeah, probably everything is okay, sorry. Yeah, so you need to get deeper and you need to understand the all areas of your work. And one of the, and probably not one of them, but the most important area of our work is the platform we are testing, right? We're writing tests for separate platform. We're writing tests for mobile, we're writing tests for web, for iOS, Android, maybe something else. And in order to build the quality, you need to understand the platform you're testing. If this is a web, you need to understand how web works, HTML, CSS rules, how it works under the hood, and how to provide the best quality for this particular platform. I would provide you one example that probably affects all the platforms and can be really improved by the QA. Yeah. Okay, we need to, sorry, I missed the slide. So in order to build the qualified, application, we need to enforce the quality and do not lose it. And this example would be about accessibility. And this is probably the most underrated thing in the web development and probably the mobile development as well, that accessibility is important and you can enforce your application to be accessible just because you are quality assurance, right? But accessibility, is it really important, right? Yeah, do we really need to make an accessible website? Our business did not ask us to build an accessibility website, but yes, it's important because 15% of all people in the world that are using computers or mobile are using accessibility features. It's not really related only to the disabled people, completely disabled people like blind, but also, for example, with people who broke a hand. Yeah, would you like to frustrate or disappoint people that just come into your website? No, because it's one of the better description of quality. Everybody can join this website and everybody can use it. And here is a nice link about the business cases of the accessibility. And if your business management is not do not agree with the requirement of accessibility, yeah, you as professional and the people and the person who is responsible for the quality, you need to describe this and make them understand the requirements of accessibility for their users. Yeah, and actually building an accessible website and testing accessibility is not really a hard thing. It doesn't cost a lot of hours, a lot of money. Yeah, actually, in order to quickly test your website for the accessibility, you can use X, and you can use 3 lines of code, like on this example, just 3 lines of code in order to get a nice report about which things on your website, on your HTML is can harden accessibility, like color contrast, semantics, heading order, and everything else. This will significantly improve the accessibility, but not 100%. Yeah, of accessibility content. And what you can do, you can enforce the accessibility by testing, and this is probably the most loved part of this presentation. We will talk about accessibility first testing for QA engineers for end-to-end tests, and I'm really excited about this. What is accessibility first testing? In order to build an accessibility first testing suite, you need only 3 rules. Yeah, first one, you need to use only accessibility-based selectors. I will give you example in the next slide. You need to have accessibility in mind. And here, it means that you need to be professional and you need to understand how accessibility works for your platform, and you need to understand what you need to do to build an accessible application. And the third one, you need to teach other people. Yeah, this is required because you need to teach your team members, your developers, your team to build an accessible website, an accessible first website. Let's take an example. For example, this suite is pretty not accessible, right? Why? It's just regular test case where we are just like querying for some element using CSS selectors, clicking on some button and checking that form input have some kind of value inside. Why it leads to the problem? First of all, it doesn't ensure that our elements are actually accessible because as you can see, the button have some kind of submit icon class name. It means that this button displays some kind of icon. So blind people could not understand what this button means actually. And the second problem I can see here is that this task is really brittle. I even think about like brittle, like making this as a separate point of the presentation at all, but I can see right now that the problem here is that the CSS classes are actually not really the best source of trust to query the element, because they can easily be changed, rename it, refactor it, or even just minify it by developers in order to improve performance, and you will just lose the element and your test will fail. And this is kind of a problem because I met a lot of situations when QA engineers are building the brutal test cases which actually failing after each new refactoring. What we can do with this? We can build an accessible change-resistant selectors. Yeah, you can see that instead of querying an element through the class names and the order of elements, you're querying the element using role and area label, which is actually the interface for the blind people. Because if your tasks cannot identify the particular element in your tasks in order to click on that, the same for the blind people. Blind people cannot understand what this element is actually doing. That's why we're querying through the area label, role button, and the label of input. Yeah, and this task, firstly, it's change resistant to the anything that can be changed. We can change the order of DOM elements. We can change the CSS classes. We can change even the tags, but we are forcing the role button, which have submit label. If this is clicked, we have this some kind of value in the input, and this is awesome. Yeah, and it works really nice. It's a pretty popular methodology in JavaScript testing, JavaScript front-end testing, but it has one problem that QA engineers are actually asked. But what if some element doesn't have particular accessible role, right? What should I do? How would I write tests? How I can do this, right? And I can say one thing, that this is a third problem we're going to talk about today. It's that QA engineers can impact on the code base. What I mean? What's wrong with QA committing to the application code base? What's wrong? I think nothing. Yeah. If QA found a typo in some kind of text or find the missing role label, he can just update the application code base. Yeah. Let me quickly describe this. So for example, let's imagine the simple workflow of developer and QA. Developer implemented the feature, the code is pushed to the branch, then QA is testing this code, writing tests, and when something is not adapted right by the code, the feature is getting back to developer. Developer is slowing down, it's switching to the new context, getting back, fixing typo, and then this cycle is going again and again. But what if we can do something like this? If developers implementing the feature, updating the code, typo found, and QA is pushing just code back and fixing this typo. And what if we can do the same, but for developer side? What if developers will just, if their tests failed, they will just update the test code and implement the feature? And this is kind of probably some kind of utopian thoughts about the software development pipeline. But that's really efficient because you do not need to switch context all the time, and you can simply quickly fix the typo and ensure the quality and ensure the result in application without slowing down the whole development process. Yeah. And you may be saying that it's some kind of utopian thoughts, but maybe it's not really an utopian thoughts. Maybe it's future. I don't know. But I want to ask you maybe the last question today that will try to answer utopian or not. Let me ask you. What will you prefer for today lunch? I definitely sorry to show this right now before the lunch, but what you prefer? Like some kind of McDonald's food or some kind of craft restaurant burger? Yeah, probably the second, right? Yeah, and why? Probably because, yeah, if you have a cheat meal, yeah, that's clear. Yeah, why would you choose the craft burger restaurant instead of McDonald's? Because of qualified products. Yeah, it will be more like delicious for you. Why? Remember that behind the McDonald's and behind the restaurant stand different people. In the McDonald's, each person works on the shortest simple operation, and as a result you're getting some fast food. In restaurants there are shift master that working on the all kind of recipes, on the all steps of recipes to build the most significant recipe in the world. Yeah, and that's what would be called as a conveyor development, and that's probably the best example I found of the conveyor development. Conveyor development is just a principle of developing something by dividing the development into simplest short operation that will be created, that will be like processed by machine or people. Yeah, and this was actually a revolution of like factories. Yeah, where we do not need to have a lot of people that build in everything, knows everything, and everything just goes faster. And the main idea of conveyor development and that it simplifies the whole development expenses because each particular step is cheaper and each particular machine or person do not require to know a lot of things. He can do the one simple short operation, and this means that this person is not professional and it's easy to replace him. And this is probably a problem, right? Because you and we don't want to be assured, we don't want to be like a person or developer who can build only a short amount of tasks, because it will be easier to replace us and we will be underpaid, right? But what is more important than the result of the conveyor development will be worse than the worst, yeah, in comparison with like development by professionals which understand each step of the pipeline and can provide the best product. And that's actually the idea of this talk. In order to become professional, you need to get deeper into the all areas of your work. You should not be like only QA assurance. You need to be professional in all areas and in some kind of utopian thoughts. One day we will be able to finally follow the Agile manifest when we don't have the breaking inside the team. We have a lot of team members that knows a lot about each step of the software development, clearly understand how software is built and works, and is an expert in one particular side. For example, there are front-end developers, back-end developers, and there are QA automation engineers. Yeah, and we should work together and become professional in all areas instead of one. And that's probably it. Become professionals and be happy. Thank you for your attention. Okay, so yeah, I think I will open the Slido. Okay. Let's ask I've been speaking too much today. So the first question, do you also think that if QA wants to talk to dev about, let's say, bug found, they should ask to go for a coffee or bring sweets to start the conversation? Not sure. Not sure. I think if like when there are, yeah, I'm saying about to be the team members and to not isolate between. You're actually saying about the isolation. You are trying to, in order to get to the developer, I need to bring some coffee and sweets. No, you don't. You need to be like a team member. You just, hey, guy, you fucked up something. That's it. Does it mean that QA should be on the same skill level to be able to fix the code that devs would trust? Does it mean that QA should be on the same skill level to be able to fix the code that dev would trust? Not sure. If you understand the platform, it's easy to fix the code. Yeah, just like if devs do not trust the pull requests that are sent in by QA, it's probably the problem of it's a mental problem of developers, because nobody will actually regret the help. Yeah, if you help to build something, it's just awesome. I've been working in the team where developers have been helping us to change the tags, and it was just awesome because we all been working on the same things and try and do our best to build the best project. Okay. Probably that's it for questions, right? Okay. Thank you. Yeah, we're just in time. So thank you, everybody. And probably not really probably, but I would for sure join the Ask Me Anything corner where we can discuss this particular talk. We can talk about Cypress and anything you want. Thank you, guys.